about the game itself, except the video they're getting without sound. And then everyone is composing their individual thoughts on music about it. And then we talk about the differences and why they choose that and all these kind of details. And the game that has been provided by Arnold Games is called Princess of Galaxia. And I would say let's start. You guys introduce yourself. And we start with you, Arnold. Here.
Hi everyone, I'm Arnold. I'm always late apparently. I've been composing games for 11 years now, I think. And 2016 I started my own company called Capricia. We were making music albums as video games, released Of Bird and Cage last year, which is like a metal album made as a game with original music that was done by us, and it was recorded by people from Guns N' Roses, Evanescence, Within Temptation, Epica, and so on. Yeah, so that's me, like kind of dealing with the connection between games and music for a decade or so.
I'm just gonna enjoy this for a second. It's my first time here, so thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute honor to be here with these amazing composers. I'm Kim, freelance composer, new to the video game industry, so that's me. I guess for me it all started when I found a cable in a box and I realized that I can connect my guitar to my computer. And from then on, kind of everything changed. And always poor, like buying new instruments. So yeah, it's really fun.
So, hey everyone, my name is Heinrich. I come from Slovakia, from a company, Grand Beats Production. We provide complete audio services like music composing, sound design, implementation, integration, also voiceovers, and porting to different platforms. And about me, I started doing music as a metal guitarist, so I come from a heavy metal music background, but then I started digging into more electronic music, orchestral music, and I've been also a long-time gamer, so these two things connected in me, and now here I am. So that's basically me.
So yeah, I'm Thor Mýrdal. I'm your host for this year's Nordic Game. I'm also actually a composer, what's my main job, and a sound designer, singer. And yeah, Arnold, you asked me 2016 to join the panel, and from there this craziness has started. So I'm just happy that we have this format over and over. It's always been fun every year. And I would say we just start with the first submission, and that's Arnold. And please let us see what Arnold has made for this game. Great. And Arnold, thank you, by the way, for providing also the sound design. That's what he did as well. Oh, that's your sound designer? Okay, then thanks to whoever that is. Okay, give the microphone to Arnold.
what should I say? What I did? So first of all, yeah, thanks to Idotov for providing the sounds. Second, we broke a tradition. This is the first. We're getting old, and we had a tradition on this panel where we always go on with sunglasses because we're very hungover. But but now we were responsible. This is the first year we're being old and responsible. There you go. About the music, I'm not being modest. I have to admit, I think in this case, I'm gonna be the one who didn't do a great job. So I'm gonna say why I think my version is not great. Yeah, I switched like rigs, and I had some problems with the deadline, so I sent it kind of last minute. I was trying to, like, when watching the trailer, I kind of got a bit, well, it's very rough, right? Like the whole trailer and the state of the game is obviously in development still. But I did get a bit of Final Fantasy vibes from it. That was kind of my reference, which I was excited about because Final Fantasy VII is, in my mind, the best game ever made. And I was like, yeah, let's do Final Fantasy music. And then it didn't quite click, at least that's how I feel about it. Like if this was an actual commercial project, I wouldn't be so comfortable sending it. I think the sync points could have been better. I think the instruments could have been better because of the new rig. I was missing some instruments because I didn't install them yet, so I really wanted to have like harps there, but didn't have it. So I kind of have to admit that I swinged it, which sounds like I didn't take it seriously, but I actually got stuck with this, which is rare for me. So it took me like almost 2 full days to do this, and usually I hope I don't sound narcissistic here, but usually we've done a million of those panels, like usually I nail it in like an hour or two. But I was really like stuck on this one. The fades, I don't know if you guys had a problem with it, but the fact that like the images that are appearing with fades and not like direct cuts threw me off like insanely, because I had to look for those things and I couldn't find them because of like there isn't an actual sync because it's a fade. And in general, I think like looking back, I would go with a music that is much more like adventure and less actiony, and also like less cliche actiony. Like I'm sure you guys hear it. I don't know how many actually like composers are in the crowd. Okay, so there are some VST instruments that you should recognize by now. So like the second this starts, you should probably like, hear action strings out of, the second it starts. And by now, like action strings and things like that are becoming like VSTs that are, like overused, let's call it. So I kind of went to the very, basic first instruments that I installed on the new rig, and I think you can kind of hear it. That's me.
Anyone questions of you guys? Ideas about it? Like something to say? Please, go ahead.
Henrik, do you have anything to say?
You first started composing, or you had to watch the video several times, or like you had a basic idea when you first saw like the first screen of the video, or you had to watch it more and more and then think about it?
Yeah, I think you always like watch it, a few times, live with it, kind of think, okay, what should I support? And I always, even in trailers, even though they're short and this is just 1 minute, but I still like look for some story to tell, which is there. Like there are motives there that are repeating, and some cuts are going back to the patterns of the strings from the beginning, and there are the piano melodies there that are like, I kind of tried telling a story with the music, as I'm sure we all always do. Again, I just think it could have been done better in this way, but
So yeah, I mean, I have nothing to say except like all the composers here. You, of course, if you want to be part of this in some form, you always just reach out to me and or to Arnold, and we're happy to have you also on this panel. We will do this anytime we're doing a Nordic Game edition, so this is more or less every time part of it. So please, just reach out to us if you want to be part of it as well. Let's go to the next submission, and that will be Kim. And Kim has also a great story about how he made it, but he will tell you afterwards. And please, let's see video 2. So Kim, please go ahead.
Wow. So basically, when I received the email from Thor with the video, I was expecting to do something with synthesizers because that's my comfort zone, and you know where everything is, and you know which buttons to push to make it sound good. So when I saw the video, I froze, and I freaked out. I was like, what am I gonna do with this? Like, imagine putting an 80s synthesizer over this. You know, it wouldn't really fit, you know? So what I did was I bought an oud, I bought a seat for it on the plane, took it back, got violently ill, did it 2 hours before the deadline, and that was it, yeah. I guess it's, for me, it was a chance and a lesson in going out of your comfort zone.
But Kim, you must say where you bought the oud.
Sorry?
You must say where you bought the oud.
Oh, we went to Essaouira in the west coast of Morocco, and I haggled for my life with this guy. I even got a selfie with him. He was really nice, but he said that, oh, strong man. But that was my budget, very low. But yeah, I bought it, and it's an absolutely beautiful instrument, and it's my first time playing it, so that's also not my comfort zone. So yeah, that was it.
I like the version you did there because the instrument fits the visuals, and it's just like having old instruments, so to say, that are there for a long time in human history is always a difference, and recording acoustic instruments is especially different than just plugging in sample libraries or something. It creates a different vibe, and then you have the playing in there that is just different as having sample libraries. It always sounds the same. You're more comfortable after a time knowing your sample libraries than knowing actually how to record the instrument, because you don't do that often usually. So well done. I really like it.
It's a slippery slope, yeah.
Yeah.
I took the leap.
Yeah. Someone of you have a comment to the version?
Yeah, I actually have a question with the differences. So, so for example, I studied film scoring. That's kind of my music degree, and because of that, and I also talked about it a bit. Like, was looking a lot for syncs. So, like, if you hear my version, like, I think the biggest difference between our versions is not the instrumentation and the feel, although obviously they're very different, which is super cool. Like, for the sake of the panel, that's the whole idea, right? But for example, like when I looked at it, like the first thing I did is kind of look for those sync points of like, okay, there's a cut here, and then there is the sword hitting here, and then they jump apart, and I was like, okay, I have to nail like, you know, something with the music at this point, and at this point, and at this point, and at this point. And I think because I studied film scoring, for me, it kind of became an illness at some point, because like every time I compose for, you know, like a video, I have to nail all those, you know, insane number of things. And then I saw your version, I was like, that's so cool that like someone can just look at this and just go with the music, because I'm pretty sure, like I hope I'm right here, but there isn't a single like sync point that you aimed for, right? No, but I'm saying it as a compliment, like because it's something that like I honestly can't do. Like I'm always like kind of basing the music on those points, which in many games is very like limiting, you know, because I have to get to this exact beat, but this beat is like, you know, bar 17 in the middle, and then like, so I wanted to ask about that. Like, do you like go with the atmosphere first, ignoring, you know, the video, and then fine tune, or like how do you normally think about it?
Well, that's a very good question. I definitely think you went with a more cerebral approach to it. I basically, what I do is look at it, close my eyes afterwards, and just like start doing it. Yeah, you got me. There's no sync points whatsoever in it. Yeah.
Suddenly you can focus on the music, and I like. What I'm saying is like it sounds like, oh, dude, why don't you have sync points? But what happened to me, like again, I think my version is bad, and part of the reason is because like I was so busy nailing those that I kind of feel I ignored the music at the end of the day. You know what I mean? And with your version, I feel like, okay, there is like a very specific mood here that works. So yeah, that's.
I mean, I guess that there's no good or bad way. It's just a different approach in the sense that, you know, they both sound amazing like that. Both approaches sound amazing, but it's just different. It's like going by feeling as opposed to, you know, like looking at it and like calculating it, I guess, in the end.
Yeah, let's take this further in a bit and hear Heinrich's version, because then we can, his actual music, because then we can take that further after all versions to talk about the sync stuff, for example. So let's play the next video. Very good, very good. Okay.
So thank you, everyone. Basically, I had the same beginning as Kim said, bro. When I looked the video first time, I was like, oh my God, what will I do now? And I had like two concepts in my head. The first one, that I will do a classic soundtrack, like you have in some levels, a static music which plays in some kind of area or such. Or then take it as a trailer, because it is a bit of a trailer. You have some story behind it. You have the characters appearing and saying some lines. And then I've decided to take it a trailerish way, because I like to capture some scenes and make the story with the music. So, and when I first watched it, I had some classic instruments in my mind, like didgeridoo, flute, some ethnic drums. And I had a very tribal feeling from this, like a fantasy, but more like a tribal. And then I've divided this video in, I think, 3 parts. The first was like the intro, the second was the characters, and there was the fight scene at the end. And there was actually an outro, we can say, so 4 parts. And I started, I think, with the intro, then I skipped to the 3rd part, then I went back to the 2nd part, and it wasn't such a constant composing for me, so I jumped from section to section, and it was a bit of improvising, and I think it's a bit a multi-genre thing, because I really like to combine many musical genres, like, okay, this will be a orchestral fantasy thing, but I try to add some electronic things, but not so much, so it won't be overwhelming for the listeners, and so. And overall, I'm really used to compose adaptive music which changes over time and every time. So I took this approach that I will make some parts and that will change and make some progression for the music. So, and also I think I completed it about 1 hour before the deadline. So I totally understand your case. So I think this is basically for me.
Yeah, what I think on your version when we were talking about sync, because you divided the whole music into these different themes and sections basically, and took the okay, let's look at the story behind it. That approach, you actually found more sync points in that approach, because there's a lot of stuff that is like hitting on different sync points that are obviously transitions, but that are like sync points just in the video. For example, when they land, when they step back,
Yeah.
you have the down there, like in the bass management, which is also in that moment just a sync point. So, and that discussion about sync points, you can make them up on your own. Like, okay, where can I do sync points because I go into a rhythm state, and that approach comes from working more with adaptive concepts or like systematic approaches. If you're also working in that, like with middleware, right?
Yeah.
By the way, we have tomorrow a great middleware panel, also with your colleague.
Yep.
And Christopher from Elias. I'm every audio interested person, but also developers who need to implement this stuff. Watch that. It's going to be a very interesting discussion about middleware. It's going to be really good. And yeah, I just think that this is like we're going from doesn't know where to sync, does the sync by accident, by just playing an instrument he didn't play before, and someone taking the systematic approach. We have already all three ways of how you approach it sometimes and how the music unfolds, because you look at different areas of just doing it, like different approaches in the general way of composing, right? And yeah, I found all versions good, but it's interesting to see that this is also the narrative of this panel, that also everyone has a different way of syncing to the content we are getting and like how to approach it. Yeah. Give Arnold the microphone. He wants to say something.
So I think overall we've done about 20 of those panels, like not just in Nordic, with also GDC, blah, blah, blah. We had guys that did Tomb Raider
What?
and...
Just joke.
no, Nordic, it's every year, but... and we had people who did Tomb Raider and Dragon's Age and, you know, in Tour and whatever. I honestly think this was the best version I ever saw. Like it's you know, like subjective feeling. Dude, I didn't hear it like before the panel. I think this is perfect. Like I don't think this could have been done any better. Like I'm now curious what Thor did, but
I have a completely different approach here, so I'm gonna talk about that in a bit.
but really, dude, like again, it's a personal taste, but like you did what I wanted to do. It's probably the best fit for a trailer I ever saw at such panels. So just wanted to say it's...
Kim, you some final words before you roast yourself?
I'm just gonna go to roasting straight.
Yeah,
Oh,
go
okay.
for it.
Hi, my name's Kim. No, I really love how you use the low end as well. I think it really shows the depth of the trailer as well. I think you've done a really tremendous job with it. And yeah, I'm really proud to be here because it really shows the personality, you know, how you did it and you did it. You know, it's like it really stands out and it's really different from what I definitely expected. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay, let's hear my version then, because that's a completely different approach. We'll talk about that in a sec.
I feel like this is an inside joke.
So what happened? I went Friday morning. I was scheduled to come to Copenhagen already to prepare Nordic Game, and Thursday night at 3 a.m. I was like, okay, fuck, I need to master the versions and I need to do my own version. And we had a client did a trailer track that was exactly the same length, but they chose a different approach there for a marketing concept with an actual band, because they tried to reach out to that band, couldn't get it for a long time, hired us to do it, and then when we were done, the band actually came back to them. They were like, hey, all good with the version, all cool, but we're going to do it with that band because of the marketing outreach they have for that. Which is totally fine for trailers, right? This is also usual and normal for trailers because, like, let's say more pop music and that, or more original music in that sense is often something video game studios choose. I mean, Battlefield did that, right? With Battlefield 1, with, what was it, the White Stripes on the trailer track. These things are normal as well. But I was just like throwing it on there and being like, hey, maybe that could fit. And it fit. So to say, from the structure, but as well from what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something with metal. I was like, oh yeah, that's a lesson in recycling. So sometimes, and I guess you guys have done that before, right? We write soundtracks or stuff, not just for videos, but also in-game. And we just have material laying around that has not been used, right? And sometimes you're just like, I remember this track I wrote for that game. That fits in this game. You do it, oh yeah, it does. And you just don't tell anyone because there's like a layover material and it fits. And it's just like, okay, well, why do I need to invent the wheel new when I already have a wheel in my garage, right? And that's basically my version. So, yeah, that was that story. The quickest composer panel production ever for me. Took me, I think, 9 minutes. And it was 3 hours before my deadline for Nordic Game, so I was way too late. I surpassed you all on the deadline. Yeah, so if you guys have any ideas about that, want to say something about that, be my guest.
I love the fact that, like, in our versions, we made music for the video, right? And when I was watching yours, I was like, okay, so Thor decided, like, I'm just gonna turn the video into a music clip, you know, for the music. Like, the music is gonna be the center.
Yes.
And it's gonna go in the background, and I'll just put, like, guitars. Like, so that was cool that suddenly it was like the music completely, you know, taking over the thing, and it's like the visuals are like there to support the music and not the other way around.
Yeah, kind of.
But I'm actually amazed how well it fits. It's like it just sits there for some reason. It's like you spent a week doing it exactly for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, wait, I have not written it for that video. That brought me to a second idea. Okay, people who are not video editors, maybe they cut and do this thing in the same tempo and the same ideas. This was something that hit my mind when I was like, this fits really good actually on the structure. So yeah, but at the end of the day, I was just okay, this is just gonna be fun. But I would say let's see the original, because I know nobody of you would guess what the game designer put under this as an original.
And your vine gon' become some ops. They can't confuse, they don't know what to do. Make them fall in lust and you all they got. Ain't no substitute comparing to you. I'm in lust with you, in love with you, I think I'm confused. My demise might be the lust, but I don't know what to do. I can't think of any substitute comparing to you. Any substitute comparing to you.
Yeah, you better not. Queen up in the spot. Try me and get dropped. Stupid, don't act shy. We made a deal, you lie. The pain will never stop. You feel the burn is hot. You ain't got no hand mittens carrying the pot.
You just stepped up in some lava. You don't have on socks.
Now I got you skinny dipping.
Okay, I gotta explain something. When I talked with Thomas about this, the games, and he was like, "So when you play video games, you just want to relax, right?" And I was like, "Well, he's not wrong." So that can also be an approach, right? So yeah, I just find it interesting. First of all, what kind of differences this shows. Like sometimes it's like and this is what we have. It feels down to the situation. We sometimes get a request for writing music, and we have nearly no information on how to do it. It's usually the other way around. We don't really have a video, but we have just mood boards and text descriptions and stuff, and not a video yet. So you gotta come up with something and basically out of thin air build a soundtrack, and then they start cutting a video to it. And then they are finalizing and refining it. And it sometimes lets us, composers, end up in a situation where we need to, first of all, sync our language, okay, to the developer, right? So if you talk about epic, what do you mean? If you talk about fast, what do you mean? Because for all of us, fast, epic, tribal, whatever, all these words basically can mean something completely different, right? So it's a lot with clients. I think it's more syncing, or with developers syncing to the language with the studio what they mean, rather than just taking our approach. And I've been in my career, and I guess all of you as well, we have been failing that completely. And it's like, oh, okay, so we went fully overboard, you meant something different. Okay, cool, well, we'll redo it then. But this is something, because he was like, yeah, it's like, you know, just like tribal, it's African, right? Like, and that's like, it's R&B. I was like, okay, yeah, well, you could say that. But then we only see the video, and for us it's like, for you guys it's like, it's fantasy. It's like, you know, original native world music style. And for you was like, it's storytelling. It's more like basic trailer effects, a lot of different music storytelling. For me it was like, recycling. And you know, different approaches on this. So I just find that really interesting. And how is it for you guys when you get the like from the client something, and you're just like, okay, what's your first kicker to go for? Are you first going to try to sync as much as possible with the client and language, or are you going, I need more material? What's your approaches on that?
So we basically, when communicating with the clients, we get some music references, or we sometimes ask for them, so we can get there slowly. We know what the client likes, and as you mentioned, these keywords like fast or heroic are a bit of problem sometimes, because I had a situation, I made a really fast track, and he told me that it should be more dynamic, and I was like, how could this be more dynamic? You know, it is fast, it has this dynamic in it, and sometimes it's a problem, but I think these references are a really good starting point when it comes to composing, because you know what instruments he likes, what tempo or BPM he likes, what length of the track or the mood. So it's basically this.
I guess for me, I try to stay away from keywords like that, because I think they're very definitive in many ways, and in my personal opinion, like kind of in the way I work, it's kind of restricting me. So when I talk to a client, I ask them first, how does it feel? How does your game feel? Show me the game. And from then on, I like to do something off the top of my head, and we touch base afterwards, because it speaks louder than words in the end.
So the first job I ever got in my life was for some...
McDonald's?
For what?
McDonald's?
No, it was some, I think, Canadian animation studio. It wasn't games. But I remember like being super excited because my first job ever, and then I sent them a track that I thought was brilliant. And then they told me that it's really great, but it feels a bit blue, and they were imagining it a bit green.
I love when that happens.
And I still remember, like, you know, sitting in front of a screen like, what? And then I changed the violin to a flute because...
It's more green.
And I sent it back, and they were like, yes, that's perfect. That's exactly what we imagined. And until today, I have no idea why, like, a violin is blue and the flute is green, but cool. So yeah, like communication is a big problem. I always say two things. One, always go by references. like references are
agree.
the best way to communicate with composers, mostly because, like you said, like, you know, everyone imagined dynamic like differently, right? And I have another cool story from actually like the past few weeks. So our company is now doing a new game, and we are looking for the music. And we had 14 sketches of like the mood, which is a lot, like as you all know, right? And at some point, like it just wasn't clicking. Like whatever the music people, which is me and Ido, were doing, just wasn't clicking for the rest of the team. And then I remember that I always say on panels this thing, but for some reason in our company we didn't do it. And I got everyone around, and I said like, okay, so basically what we need is, okay, references is obviously, but and that's a cool distinction also that you made. You said that you hate using keywords, and you said that you don't like keywords, but you like emotions, right? And that's exactly what like I always try to go with. So whenever I work with a developer, except apparently in my own company, which took weeks to remember, I always ask like, imagine, like, tell me what you want the player to feel here in 1 to 3 words. And I think it's a big distinction between like keywords and emotions, because I don't need them to tell me, and that's a good tip for developers who tend to do that, especially people who kind of played a bit piano, a bit guitar, you know, like 10 years ago, and then they go like, yes, I'm imagining like, you know, an harmonic minor here. Like, I think that's a very bad idea, like to go to musicians and say like, I need this to be dynamic, I need this to be fast, or I need this to be epic and stuff like that. But I do think it's a really good question of what do you want the player to feel at this specific point. So, for example, you know, in our case, we, after a lot of debate, which also was awesome because like that was why we weren't nailing it, because suddenly everyone in the team said completely different feelings, and we were like, well, obviously you don't like the music we're making because we can't agree on the base feelings, right? Yeah. So we came up with like, you know, eerie and fun, for example. And then it's not technical music stuff of like, you know, dynamic, right? Because when I tell you, like all of us, dynamic is something very musically like clear, right? As composers. But suddenly you go with eerie, and then like let us do the job of understanding what the hell is eerie music-wise.
Yeah. Yeah. We have 5 minutes left. Do we have questions in the audience? Let's go straight into the Q&A, and we grab one of the microphones. Arnold, give your microphone away. You're talking too much. And I will just stand here and give you guys the microphones. So, any questions? Raise your hands. You can ask anything. No questions? No views? No one is curious about how you write metal tracks and recycle them? There we go.
Yes, hi, thank you so much for sharing your music here. It's very interesting to see how each of you think. Like you said, like it's you can have so many different approaches, it seems to me, like when it comes to what you imagine like the client to come for. I'm curious about like what's your first interaction usually with clients? Like how do you communicate with them? Like, is it through? I wouldn't know.
So who wanna take the question? Okay, I take that question. First interaction is email. Yeah. No, so my first interaction usually with the client is, I mean, the way the jobs flow to you are all different. Like meet to match, you go on conferences, or you are being referred, or whatever. Like it's a different interaction. So it always depends on, did you talk before with the person that actually is skilled to talk to you, to you as a composer, in your first approach to the company or not. If it is, then you're lucky. Because then usually you touch base on a basic idea, and the second conversation is mostly like a few days later or something. You're first talking about a job, you're looking at all the material, what they're going to do, you make up your mind, usually first it's been talked about what needs to be done, right? Like, what are we talking about? What's the time frame for the whole thing? Like, are we talking about like just a few weeks of composition, or talking we like 8 years production for like whatever Marvel thing or MMO or whatever, big things, right? And the thing is, first we as composers, we gotta get an idea, right? Like, of what are we walking into, and then usually it's a longer discussion about budget, about you know, like how much are we doing? Are we only doing the composition, or are we responsible for recording and mixing, mastering, getting these people in? So it's usually first a budget question. So the approach is usually understanding the product, and then going into discussion about budget and workflow, and then it goes to the full creative thing. But for the client often to be like, okay, let's see if that fits. If we want to work together, they ask for a demo, and then I usually drop like, I don't know, like 30 seconds, like a music idea to some video material. They just screen in the engine, quickly record it, and just write to that and do exactly what we did here, so to say. Less trailer, more like in-game content. That's like kind of my approach on it, and then it develops from there, and it goes over and over. Any one of you like their approaches? Something to say? Okay. See, any other question? We have 1.5 minutes. Oh, yeah, there.
Hi. You worked on scoring a trailer here, but in the case where you then follow up with scoring the actual game, what are some of the elements that you take with you in the scoring of the game, or would from these versions that you've created?
I mean, the difference is not really that much from getting the mood, right? It's less about getting the sync points right. It's more about, is the way you would score it, the way you would approach it, is that fitting the mood of the video game? So it's more in that first approach about okay, it's the music. Are you hitting, as a composer, the musical challenge of actually creating the atmosphere and the emotional story behind the content in music, and like mirroring that, in my opinion. Like, that's usually what happens there. So it doesn't matter what kind of material it is, if it's a trailer or in-game content. But if it's in-game, of course, there's systematical stuff on the later road going into it. How are we implementing it, this kind of stuff, which is very important for composers also to know. So you know middleware, but that you can find out tomorrow. Anything to add from you guys to it?
I'm not sure that I understood the question correctly, but it raises an interesting point, which maybe the question was connected to, like if there is a connection between the trailer and the video and stuff you show to the in-game music, right? And, well, I have 0 time, but I'll say that ideally, yes. And the bigger the project is and the better it's planned, by the way, this connection really exists. So like big projects that I worked on, you know, like the main theme was always already in the trailer, and like it's thought out to have elements that will later go into the gameplay somewhere.
So we're done with the panel. Thank you for being here. And I will give over to Jason Della Rocca, who will take the moderation from 12 onwards. And if you have any more questions, I think you guys are hanging around a little bit outside, and happy to network and take questions. And yeah, I wish you a lot of fun with the second day of Nordic Game now, and thank you for being here.